Jade Park's cheek hit the alloy floor hard enough that white sparks burst behind his eyes. He tasted old alcohol, machine oil, and blood. The club's grav plates hiccuped with the bass pulse from somewhere above the docking ring, so for one dizzy second, he felt both crushed to the deck and floating an inch above it. Then, a striped forearm banded his throat and fixed him in place with merciless precision. A knee drove into the center of his back, pinning his spine. He reached for the hand at his neck and found muscle like braided cable under warm fur. The chokehold wasn't the surprise. The surprise was the scanner. "Stay still, human," the woman growled over his ear, voice low and steady, not out of breath at all. "One twitch and I dislocate something expensive." She pressed an off-duty guard scanner to his pulse point. The cheap civilian shell was scuffed. The military core inside it was not. Jade felt the tiny injectors sample his skin salts and microcirculation. 3 beats later, the display flashed up in hard Dominion red. Black Ops Instructor, deceased. Everything in him went cold. Around them, the dockside club emptied in instinctive waves. Glass stilled in hands. Chairs scraped away. Nobody on Kepler Station interfered when a Tiger-cast Dominion guard chose violence, especially not Lieutenant Soren Vale. Even in civilian leathers and no badge visible, she radiated rank like heat. Jade had noticed her when she came in. Impossible not to. Tall even for Tiger-cast, shoulders built for armor, black and amber striping across exposed forearms, a long braid threaded with old service rings. She had clocked exits first, drink second, every reflective surface third. Off-duty but never unready. He should have left then. Instead, he'd stayed on his stool with his back to the hollowball game and his attention on the mirror over the bar, pretending he was just another human grease monkey blowing hazard pay after a 16-hour shift in Freight Rig Bay 9. Registry said he was exactly that. Male, 34, contract mechanic, no military history, no dependents, no trouble. Registry lied for a living. Soren's breath brushed his ear as she read the scanner. Deceased? Jade went stiller. Database error. Her grip tightened microscopically, tiger claws threatening through the pads of her fingers. You tell me who you are, or I carry you to internal myself. I am who I said at the bar, he rasped. A mechanic. You fought like a blade instructor the second I touched your elbow. I grew up in bad neighborhoods. She snorted once, almost amused, and shifted just enough to keep his airway open while maintaining control. Professional restraint. Measured force. Whoever trained her had done it right. Memory flared. Unwanted. Dust-red training fields on Orestes' border, 12 cadets in mixed-species fatigues, one tiger girl with a split lip refusing to stay down. Eyes bright with fury, then focus. Always focus. No. Wrong time. Soren angled the scanner so only he could see the red text. Her pupils widened from slit to dark circles. Not triumph. Shock. Jade Park is not a dead Black Ops instructor, she said quietly. No, he said. He isn't. For a beat, the bass dropped out and only ventilation hummed. Jade could hear nearby patrons trying not to hear. The bartender had gone pale and very busy polishing glasses that did not need polishing. Soren's voice lowered. If this is spoofing, someone burned a lot of high-security keys to do it. If it's real, it's older than this station. That's not better. Her forearm eased, not releasing him, just changing from kill leverage to control leverage. It was a choice. She could have ended this in 3 seconds and collected whatever commendation came with handing over a ghost. Instead, she shifted her weight and hauled him up by the back of his jacket like he weighed nothing. Move, she ordered. steering him toward a service door behind the bar. To the watching room, she barked, "Private guard matter, drink and forget." Nobody argued. The storeroom door sealed behind them with a pneumatic sigh. The air changed from sweat and spice liquor to coolant and citrus disinfectant. Dim shelf lights painted everything green. Crates, keg lines, emergency medkit bolted open but empty. Soren shoved him against the wall, one forearm braced beside his head. Up close, he could see a faint white scar through the fur on her jawline and the tiny tremor in her left hand she kept hidden by clenching it. "Start talking," she said. "Now." Jade lifted both hands slowly. "You're off duty. You saw something you shouldn't. Walk away and your command can pretend this never happened." "My command already knows." She flicked her eyes to the door panel. "And they sent me no ping before that scanner hit your pulse, which means either my channel is compromised or someone wants me blind." A deep vibration rolled through the floor, not bass this time, a directed jammer pulse. Every indicator on the wall went dead at once. Soren and Jade looked at each other. Then the first charge blew the outer club doors. The blast was muffled by two bulkheads but big enough to rattle bottle racks. Shouting followed. Short, clipped commands in station trade overlaid by encrypted clicks. Boots. Multiple. Soren was already moving. She killed the storeroom lights, yanked a pry bar from a shelf bracket, and shoved it into Jade's hands. If they were real customs, they'd isolate the bar and run IDs. Hear that pattern? Stack advance, jammer net, no call out. Kill team. How many? 8 minimum. She glanced at him, measuring. Who did you make angry, mechanic? People with uniforms. A dry smile flashed and vanished. Of course. Another blast closer. The inner wall dented inward. Dust shook loose from the seam. Soren tapped her wristcom. Nothing. Jammer's military grade. So is that breach gel, Jade said. His own pulse had gone from panic to the old brutal calm he hated and trusted. You said they're here for me? You think they're here for me? Footsteps pounded past the storeroom. Too many, too fast, ignoring civilians. A scream cut off abruptly. Not random. Targeted. Soren looked once at the scanner still in her hand, at the red word deceased, then at Jade. Decision crystallized in her face like steel setting. Fine, she said. You die later. Not to them. The first operative came through the storeroom wall in a spray of alloy shards, customs blue armor over black undersuit. Visor down, rifle up. Soren met him before his boots landed. She stepped inside the rifle line, struck his throat seal with the heel of her hand, and drove him into a keg stack hard enough to fold metal. She took his weapon mid-fall and fired 2 non-lethal concussive rounds through the smoke at shapes behind him. A second operative rolled through low, shock baton crackling. Jade moved on reflex, pry bar hooking the baton wrist, twisting. The operative cursed in clip dominion and reached for a sidearm. Jade slammed the pry bar across his helmet and felt the old sickness rise as the body dropped. Service hatch, Soren shouted. He saw it then, a maintenance crawlspace panel behind stacked supply crates, half sealed with foam. Not an exit, customers knew. He kicked crates aside while Soren fought in the doorway, turning the breach funnel into a kill zone without firing lethal shots unless she had to. 2 customs uniforms went down groaning. A third did not get back up. Soren. Jade had no right to use her name, he used it anyway. Now. She ripped a grenade from the fallen operative's belt, thumbed it to flash stun, bounced it into the corridor and dove through the hatch after him as white light detonated behind them. The shockwave slammed the panel shut. Darkness swallowed everything but their breathing. For 3 seconds, neither moved. Then Soren hissed through her teeth and crawled forward, into the maintenance tunnel. Keep up. The tunnel was barely shoulder width for her, hot with recycled air and vibrating with pipe traffic. Jade followed, palms scraping grime, knees bruising on rivet heads. Behind them came muffled pounding and the dull whine of cutters hitting the hatch. Left at next split, Soren said, then down 2 ladders. You know this grid? I broke up a riot in Ring 6 and got chased through half of it. Useful evening. They dropped into a vertical shaft that smelled of coolant and algae. Below, station lights flickered as jammer interference bled into municipal systems. Emergency sirens began to rise, then cut, then rise again. Jade landed hard on a grated catwalk. Soren came down silent beside him despite her size. A station-wide alert burst from the nearest service speaker, scrambled, then clear. By order of Security Chief Marrow, lethal warrant issued for fugitive human male, registry name Jade Park. Subject linked to terrorism threat. All citizens report sightings. Interference with lawful detention punishable by summary detention. Jade laughed once, short and bitter. That was fast. Soren's jaw locked. Marrow does not issue lethal warrants from partial data. He had this cued. Then he knew the team was coming. Yes. Another alert followed almost immediately, this one on a private Tigercast channel that bled through unsecured maintenance speakers as a distorted crackle. Soren froze as her own Housecrest tones sounded. Housevale censure. Lieutenant Soren Vale observed in protective contact with human male suspect. Pending review for contamination breach and command disobedience. All affiliates withdraw support. The message ended with a ritual denial tone, formal exile language, stripped down for speed. Soren stood very still in the dark. Then she reached up and unclipped one of the service rings from her braid. It was etched with Housevale's sigil. She held it for a second, thumb over the metal, and tucked it into a pocket instead of dropping it. Congratulations, Jade said quietly. You're now helping the station's most wanted corpse. She shot him a look sharp enough to peel paint. And you're still breathing because I chose badly. Or, well, undecided. They moved. Through heat ducts where air shimmered and burned the inside of Jade's lungs. Across cargo spines suspended over kilometer-deep shafts threaded with maglifts. Past hydroponic bays where black water reflected strips of emergency red and anti-human gang tags glowed fresh on polymer walls. Bounty symbols, crude human skulls, numbers climbing by the minute as the warrant propagated. At every junction, Soren listened before moving. At every sealed panel, Jade cracked obsolete military encryption with a stolen data probe and an engineer's toolkit that suddenly felt like contraband. Their skills meshed with terrifying ease. Her body, his pattern sense, both running on trauma and not admitting it. Twice they avoided patrol drones. Once, they did not avoid 3 dockside scavengers with shock knives and bounty fever eyes. Soren disarmed one, Jade dropped another with a pipe wrench he found on a maintenance cart, and the third ran screaming that the tiger was hunting for sport. 10 minutes later, half the lower ring thought they were monsters. In a dead relay chamber above Hydroponics Tier C, they finally stopped. The chamber was Old Dominion design. Curved walls, inactive holoprojector, power couplings long since stripped. Quiet except for the distant thud of pumps. Soren braced both hands on a console and bowed her head until her braid brushed the metal. Her shoulders shook once, almost imperceptibly. Adrenaline dump. She inhaled hard, slow, and straightened like nothing happened. Jade pretended not to notice for exactly 5 seconds. You're overclocking your neural mesh, he said. Her ears flattened. You can see that? I trained people who did it. Hand tremor left side, delayed pupil reset. pressure hold at your temples every time you stop moving." He pointed, and only then realized he sounded like the man he used to be. "You crash, we both die." She stared at him for a long moment. "There it is." "What?" The instructor voice. He looked away first. "Doesn't matter. It matters to whoever sent a kill team and forged a warrant." Jade pulled his pack around and unzipped the false bottom. Inside, wrapped in thermal cloth between wrenches and connector pins, sat a compact data core no bigger than his palm. Matte black. No markings. Soren's eyes narrowed. "What is that?" "The reason I came to Kipri." "Try again with honesty." He met her gaze. "A command key fragment, one of 3. Together they can override orbital defense targeting protocols." For the first time since the bar fight, she looked genuinely unnerved. "City killer access." "Yes." "Who has the other fragments?" "I was trying to find out before your friends blew up my evening." "My friends were wearing customs uniforms and shooting civilians." Her voice went flat. "Not mine." Jade nodded once. "Fair." She paced once across the cramped chamber, claws clicking softly on metal. "Marrow wants you dead on sight. My house just disowned me publicly. Every gang with a grievance now has your face and my description, and you're carrying a key that can turn Kipri's satellites on its own districts." "That about sums it up." Soren stopped in front of him, close enough that he could see the gold flecks in her irises. "Then, we do not run separately." He blinked. "You trust me that much?" "No." A baring of teeth that wasn't quite a smile. "I trust outcomes. If they wanted only you dead, they could have done it quietly weeks ago. They wanted spectacle and witnesses, which means there is a larger operation in motion and you are either bait or blame." "Likely both. Then we stay alive long enough to decide which." Outside, another warrant update blared through distant speakers. Another bounty increase. Another drumbeat pushing the whole station toward panic. Jade slid the data core back into hiding and sealed his bag. For 3 years, he had lived small and silent, hunting one broker, one lead, one ghost at a time, never attaching, never trusting, never saying his own name out loud if he could help it. Now, a tiger guard with blood on her knuckles and exile in her comms had chosen him over her command in the space of a heartbeat. "Okay," he said. "Temporary alliance." Soren offered her forearm, warrior style. "Temporary." He clasped it. Warm fur, old scars under the skin, grip like a vice. In the dark relay chamber above the hydroponic black, with half a station hunting them, and something much worse waking up in the systems above, they made a bargain neither of them believed would stay temporary for long. Their grips broke, and Soren was moving again before Jade's hand fully dropped. "Up," she said. "This relay chamber pings dead on patrol maps. First place they'll sweep when they realize we used maintenance." Jade shouldered his pack. "Any place they won't sweep?" "Places people are afraid of. That narrows it down to the whole station." She bared a quick canine in something almost like approval and pried open a ceiling panel with her claws. Hot air spilled down. "Climb." He went first into a conduit that forced him onto elbows and toes. Metal burned through his shirt. Behind him, Soren slid in with the predatory efficiency of someone used to fitting armor and weaponry through impossible spaces. They crawled 30 meters in silence broken only by fan whine and the occasional station-wide alert crackling from buried speakers. At a junction box, Jade tapped the panel cover twice, listening for resonance. "What are you doing?" Soren whispered. "Finding the wire that carries public feeds without carryback telemetry." "You can hear that." "I can hear a lot of bad decisions in this station." He popped the cover, stripped 2 leads with his teeth, and fed a wafer-thin diagnostic chip from his sleeve into the exposed port. A bloom of text flickered on his wrist display. Warrant updates, deployment maps, civilian panic chatter. Marrow's net was spreading ring by ring, shaping movement with precision. Patrols funneled toward transport choke points. Drones redirected from customs to internal corridors. Bounty spikes posted on gang boards in districts where humans couldn't walk alone in daylight. "They're hurting us," Jade murmured. "Not just searching." Soren shifted beside him. "Toward where?" He enlarged a map and felt his stomach knot. "Upper military spine. They want me above Ring 3. "Defense sectors?" "Yeah." The conduit shuddered as something heavy clanged below. Voices rose, muffled. Soren froze, nostrils flaring. 3 below us. Not patrol cadence. Hunting team. A beam of cutting light stabbed through the grate behind them. "Move!" she snapped. They burst out of the duct into a service mezzanine over a cargo spine, a long, exposed bridge with mag rails on both sides and open drop beneath, freight lifts screaming up and down like steel lungs. Emergency red strobes painted Soren's stripes black, then amber, then black again. A customs drone rose from the far rail, lens swiveling. Jade flung a spanner from his pack on reflex. It struck the lens, not hard enough to break it, but enough to skew its angle. Soren was already there, one palm against the drone's chassis, claws punching through intake vents. The machine sparked and sagged, dead before it hit the deck. From the mezzanine hatch behind them, 2 armored figures emerged. Customs blue, weapons raised. "Dominion security," one barked. "Lieutenant Vale, stand down." Soren shot back without looking. "Your boots are private contract issue," and drove Jade over the rail. They dropped onto a moving cargo pallet loaded with sealant drums. The pallet bucked. Jade's knees slammed metal. Soren landed cat-soft, then shoved him flat as rifle fire chewed sparks from the pallet edge. Above, more figures crowded the mezzanine. None of them fired warning shots. The pallet sped toward a split in the mag rail, where one track plunged into loading darkness and another curved toward customs intake. Soren scanned the junction, judged timing, then grabbed Jade's jacket and jumped. They hit the lower track hard, rolled, and slammed into a maintenance cage. Jade's shoulder exploded with pain. He bit back a yell as Soren ripped the cage latch free and dragged him into the narrow space between 2 active lift shafts. Freight thundered past on either side, close enough to peel skin if he leaned wrong. Soren crouched at the cage opening, listening. Her breathing was steady. Her left hand shook once, then locked rigid. "Shoulder?" she asked. "Fine." Liar. Functional liar. She gave him one curt nod and pressed 2 fingers to the side of her own neck, massaging just under the ear where a neural jack scar disappeared into fur. Her pupils contracted, dilated, failed to settle. Jade pulled a coolant ampule from his kit and held it out. "For the headache." Her eyes flicked to it, then to him. "Poison would be faster. If I wanted you dead, I'd have stayed in the bar." A beat. Then she took the ampule, cracked it against the rail, and pressed the cold gel strip to her temple. Her jaw unclenched by a fraction. From somewhere above came a new voice over loudspeaker, smoother than Marrow's public bark. "Citizens of Kipri," the woman said, rich and measured. "Remain calm during the security event. A terrorist infiltrator is being contained. Trust your guard." Soren went still as stone. "You know that voice," Jade said. She didn't answer immediately. "High strategist channel," she said at last. "House-level reassurance. They never deploy it for one fugitive mechanic." The voice continued, soothing and absolute, while armed teams hunted 2 people through the bones of the station. They used the freight timing to cross into Ring 4's underworks and surfaced in a shuttered parts market. All stalls dark except one back booth where a single work lamp burned blue. An old avian woman with copper implants looked up as they approached and clicked her beak in irritation. "Lieutenant Vale," she said, "you bring trouble like weather." Soren's ears angled back. "Need maps and a blind route to military archive decks." The woman's gaze slid to Jade and sharpened. "Ah, the dead human." Jade didn't bother pretending surprise anymore. "How much for the route?" "Today?" The woman tapped a holoslate where bounty numbers rolled upward in real time. "More than your organs are worth." Soren stepped forward, predatory and calm. "Nemi." Nemi held up both clawed hands. "I did not summon hunters. Yet. But others will. There are packs in the lower ring scanning for his thermal profile and a house retrieval team looking for you specifically, Little Tiger." She made a sympathetic noise that wasn't sympathy. "Your aunt pays better than fugitives." Soren's expression didn't change, but Jade felt the air tighten. "Aunt," he said quietly. Soren ignored him. "Route." Nemi sighed theatrically and slid a data wafer across the table. "Service spine 13, then an old cadet elevator no one maintains because everyone says it is cursed. Goes straight to decommissioned Sims near Defense Annex. If you are not dead in an hour, I am disappointed." Jade passed over 2 credit chits. Nemi pushed one back. "Keep it," she said. "You will need to bribe someone less sentimental than me." As they turned to go, Nemi added, almost casually, "Do not use main catwalk to Spine 13. Red Claw boys waiting there with monoblades. They have your face on every wrist screen." "Noted," Jade said. They left through a rear shutter into algae mist and condensate rain. Soren walked fast, silent. Every line of her body wound tight. When they reached a blind corner between coolant towers, Jade caught her arm. "Your aunt," he said. She pulled free. "Not now." "Now. If your family's involved, I need the truth before we walk into whatever this is." Her lips peeled from her teeth in anger. Pain. Both. "You think I do not know that?" She stepped close enough that her voice dropped to a rasp. "High strategist Rahl Vale sits over 3 houses and half the station's strategic contracts. She signed my commission oath. She named me at my right. And she has wanted me dead with honor since I refused breeding contract assignment last cycle." Soren laughed once, no humor. "There. Family truth. Satisfied?" Jade absorbed that, then nodded. "More than before." She started to turn away and nearly stumbled. Her hand shot to the wall. For half a second, her balance went out completely. He caught her elbow. "Soren, I'm fine. Your mesh is spiking. Do not diagnose me while hunted. Then stop moving for 10 seconds. She glared, then forced herself still. Jade counted breaths with her. 4 in, hold, 6 out, until the tremor in her forearm eased. When she opened her eyes again, the fury had banked into focus. 10 seconds, she said. Done. They cut through filtration tunnels towards Spine 13. Anti-human tags gave way to Tiger House glyphs etched into bulkheads. Territorial marks, lineage boasts, warning sigils for outsiders. Twice, they heard boots and tucked into valve recesses, while teams passed within meters. First, gang scavvers arguing about bounty splits. Then, disciplined house retainers in ceremonial combat wraps carrying stun spears and legal authority to seize Soren for protection. Protection meant a private cell and a public funeral if Rahl needed one. At the entrance to Service Spine 13, the Red Claw gang was indeed waiting. 6 males with blade implants and cheap body armor, clustered around a cargo loader like carrion birds around a warm engine. "Human!" one shouted as soon as he saw Jade. "Alive pays triple." Soren didn't even slow. She hit the first attacker with a shoulder check that folded him over the loader rail, stripped the second's monoblade from his wrist socket, and spun low to hamstring the third with the flat of the blade rather than the edge. Jade ducked a swing, slammed his toolkit into an attacker's throat, then used the dropped loader controls to ram a pallet jack into two more. The sixth ran. The whole fight lasted maybe 12 seconds. Jade's pulse hammered like war drums anyway. Soren tossed the monoblade aside in disgust. They're children. Children with knives. They should have been in apprenticeship halls, not bounty packs. He looked at her, breathing hard. That happened a lot under your aunt's strategy. Her ears twitched. She said nothing, which was answer enough. At the far end of the spine, they found the cadet elevator Nemi mentioned, old brasswork, manual gate, Dominion Academy crest half sanded off. Someone had scratched a curse sigil across the panel in 3 different dialects. Soren keyed a sequence. Red denial flashed. Your credentials revoked? Jade asked. House channel, yes. She drew a short blade and sliced her own palm without flinching, then pressed blood to the biometric plate. Gold filaments lit under the metal, old systems recognizing old authority. The gate shuddered open. Bloodline override, Jade said. Some doors still respect mothers more than commanders. She stepped inside. Move. The elevator rose with arthritic groans through abandoned decks. Floor indicators clicked past faded labels. Cadet Hall, A, Sim Range C, Tactical Immersion. Dust coated everything beyond the gate windows. At Deck 12, the lift stalled and flickered. Soren smacked the control housing. It coughed and continued. When the doors finally rasped open, cold, dry air flowed in. The corridor beyond was broad, dark, and lined with sealed simulator pods like tombs. Old unit mottos and Dominion script ran along the walls. Jade's chest tightened with a memory he hadn't invited. The smell of polymer mats, young cadets bruised and grinning after drills, the impossible belief that training could save them from politics. Why here? Soren asked quietly. Her voice echoed. Jade stepped out, scanning the dusty deck. A broker lead I chased said one key fragment moved through decommissioned training logistics. I came weeks ago. Couldn't crack the archive without tripping alarms. I needed a Tiger-grade credential. He glanced at her. Got one now. Lucky us. They moved down the corridor with the lights flickering on in hesitant bands as emergency power recognized occupancy. At Sim Bay, 12C, Soren stopped so abruptly, Jade almost walked into her. On the wall beside the bay door was a painted emblem, mostly peeled away, a black triangle over a white stripe, old Coalition training mark. Jade stared at it. He knew that emblem. He had designed that block's pain instruction curriculum himself. No, he said under his breath. Soren's eyes were on the same symbol, pupils blown wide. I know this. He looked at her, really looked, at the set of shoulders, the scar at jawline, the way she stood offset to protect her left flank, exactly as he drilled into cadets after week 3, when one of them took a knife in close quarters. You were in an off-world exchange class? He asked, voice rough. She nodded slowly, as if afraid movement might break something fragile. 12 cadets. Mixed castes, mixed species. Black site program. We were told instructor identities were compartmented. We only got code names. Her gaze snapped to his face. Yours was Ash. Jade felt the deck tilt under him. Ash, a ghost name he'd buried with the rest. Soren touched the scar on her jaw. You broke my stance on day 1 and told me rage is just fear with better posture. He remembered saying it. He remembered a Tiger cadet spitting blood and doing the drill again, Before he could answer, the bay door chirped and unsealed, triggered by Soren's bloodline trace still active in the corridor net. Lights rose over a vast, decommissioned simulator floor, ringed by dead projectors and a central tactical pit full of dormant hollow emitters. Dust floated like ash in the beams. At the far wall, a command console blinked amber. Legacy archive available. Jade moved to it in a trance and jacked in his diagnostic chip. Files unfolded in layers of obsolete military encryption. He bypassed the first gate, then the second, then stopped when a header appeared in stark red. Program Kite 12. Post-conflict sanitization order. All instructors. Status deceased. All cadets. Marker attached. Sanitization, he whispered. Not death records. Kill order markers. Soren came beside him, reading fast. Attached means if any of us surfaced under real biometric scan. Automatic flag to black channels, Jade finished. Whoever owns the marker gets a live ping. The scanner in the bar hadn't discovered him by luck. It had lit a beacon. Another file pinged open. Authorization chain. Soren's breathing changed when the top signature resolved in gold. High Strategist, Ral Vale. Beneath it, Security Chief Marrow, Customs Proxy Units, Emergency Propaganda Package preloaded. Target narratives already drafted. Jade pulled up the operation brief, and both of them went silent. Event. False flag. Satellite strike attempt. Objective. Justify martial law / house purge. Public culprit. Human infiltrator. Jade Park alias package attached. Ceremonial. Martyr. Lieutenant. Soren Vale. Lost in dutiful containment. Soren gripped the console until metal creaked. She wrote my death speech. Jade scrolled further, jaw hardening. And she planned to blame you for failing if you survived. A tactical timeline blossomed. Recover 3 command key fragments. Trigger partial targeting lock on civilian district held by rival houses. Intercept. At last second too late to avoid casualties. Seize emergency powers permanently. In the margin notes, Ral had added one line in cold formal dominion. External Instructor. Ash must remain dead for narrative coherence. Jade let out a breath that sounded like a laugh and wasn't. There's your deceased marker. Soren turned toward him. For the first time since this started, there was no rank in her face, no cast armor, just a woman realizing her blood had signed her execution. I did not remember your face, she said. Helmet. Voice modulation. But I remembered one thing. You never threw cadets away to prove a point. Her throat worked once. I thought that was weakness then. And now? Now I think it is why I'm still standing. He met her eyes. Something shifted. Small. Irreversible. Jade reached into his pack and pulled out the matte black key fragment. Then, after a heartbeat, he set it on the console between them, where she could see it clearly. No more half-truths, he said. There are 3 fragments. I have one. The second is likely in Defense Nexus transit, tagged to Marrow's chain. The third, unknown. If Ral gets all 3, she can fire the grid before anyone votes on anything. Soren looked at the fragment, then at him. Why show me? Because isolation already killed my team once. He swallowed, voice flattening into instructor cadence without permission. I'm done fighting alone. She nodded once, fierce and steady despite the tremor returning to her left hand. Then, teach me the counter protocols. He gave a short, disbelieving exhale. You really remember my classes? I remember everything that hurt. Jade almost smiled. Good. This will hurt. Outside the simulator bay, distant alarms changed tone. Deeper. More urgent. Somewhere on Kipri, pieces were already moving into place for Raoul's performance. Inside the dead training hall, a dead instructor and a chosen martyr bent over old war code and began building a way to break the script. Jade pulled a dead simulator chair beside the console and started building a counterstrike out of scavenged code and memory. Raoul's sequence is layered, he said, fingers flying across the amber keys. She doesn't need full command to start panic. She can trigger targeting diagnostics and let the public watch reticles bloom over neighborhoods. Soren stood at his shoulder, reading faster than he expected. Then, she fails to stop it in time. Casualties justify martial law. Exactly. He cracked open another locked archive. Transport manifests spilled across the screen. Military spines, restricted cargo trams, authentication chains. One line pulsed crimson. Defense, key, segment, beta. In transit to orbital nexus departure. 9 minutes. Jade cursed. Second fragment is moving now. From where? Internal security vault annex, Marrow's signing chain. He zoomed route overlays. Direct armored shuttle to the orbital nexus. If that reaches Raoul and she already has the third, she has all three before dawn cycle. Soren's tail lashed once behind her. Can we stop launch authorization remotely? Not with her command privileges intact. We need either the fragments or an override at fire control. Soren tapped a side panel and pulled up station legal channels. Then we expose her before she can use them. Jade hesitated. You trust tribunal judges to move faster than satellites? I trust politics to protect itself. If rival houses believe she can erase districts at will, they will tear her apart. He nodded. Then we send everything. They bundled the conspiracy files. Kill order markers, false flag brief, signature chain. Jade wrote a verification wrapper that cross-checked archival hashes in real time. Soren added house seal attestations from her own command imprint. For one dangerous minute, they worked in sync so cleanly it felt like old drills. He built attack vectors. She anticipated where he'd need force, legitimacy, or blood. Then the station lights dimmed to near black. A warning klaxon rolled through the abandoned deck, lower than any they'd heard so far. Attention all rings, a synthetic voice intoned. Emergency security measure, bastion lock initiated. Civilian transit suspended. District barriers sealing. Jade looked up. On the map, ring gates slammed shut in sequence like a fist closing. Cargo corridors became kill boxes. Lift control shifted from municipal to military command. Soren's face went hard. Raoul just caged 6 million people. Another feed hijacked every available speaker, holopanel, and maintenance display. High Strategist Raoul appeared in white command robes, silver throat collar, eyes calm as winter. Citizens, she said. We are under coordinated terrorist assault by an off-world infiltration cell. Security Chief Marrow is enacting bastion lock to preserve life. A compromised officer, Lieutenant Soren Vale, has abducted key defense material and aided the infiltrator. Do not approach. Report immediately. Her image shifted. Grainy footage filled the screen. Jade in the club, Soren fighting customs uniforms, civilians screaming. Edited hard, stripped of context, it looked like slaughter. Then a still frame. Jade's face tagged with a bounty crest and the words, City Killer Agent. Soren didn't blink. She had the media package loaded before tonight. Scripted martyrdom, Jade said. You called it. A new overlay flashed beneath Raoul's address. Blood Recall Authority invoked. Lieutenant Soren Vale. Soren jerked like she'd been struck. Her hand flew to the base of her skull. She hit one knee, breath sawing. Soren, don't touch! She clenched her jaw, claws scraping sparks from the console edge. Under her fur, the muscles of her neck spasmed violently. Commission implant. Command discipline channel. She just turned it back on. Jade ripped open a diagnostics pane and scanned nearby frequencies. A narrow-band pulse was hammering old guard compliance implants. Obsolete, illegal under current code, still functional in bodies like hers. She can pain lock you remotely? Not full control, Soren ground out. Enough to drop me in a fight. Ral's voice continued serenely overhead while Soren fought not to black out. Jade slammed a signal jammer together from simulator parts and a drone capacitor. Hold still. Have you met me? He knelt behind her anyway, snapped the improvised loop around the back of her neck, and triggered a white noise burst. Soren convulsed once, then inhaled like surfacing from deep water. The tremor didn't vanish. It just became survivable. She pushed herself upright. How long? Until she retunes the pulse. Maybe 20 minutes, maybe 5. Then move. They transmitted the evidence package through 3 bounced maintenance relays aiming at tribunal nodes, independent press mirrors, even union channels and freight rings. Progress bars climbed. At 72%, every bar froze. Transmission redirected. Authority. Security Chief Marrow. A return packet slammed into Jade's interface, corrupted and fast. He killed the link a second too late. Their screens flooded with forged metadata. Timestamps rewritten. Signature chains altered to make it look as if they had fabricated the RAL files in the Simbay minutes ago. They poisoned the upload, Jade said, sick. Anyone opening that bundle sees us as the forgers. Soren swore in Tigercast, low and vicious. Can we prove tampering? Maybe with original vault hashes, but those are in Marrow's custody. We just handed him our route signatures and probably our exact deck location. As if on cue, blast doors at both ends of the corridor slammed shut. Mag clamps engaged with a bone-deep thud. Soren looked at the sealed exits, then at Jade. How many routes out? He scanned blueprints. 2. Both just became none. From beyond the doors came synchronized bootfalls and the whine of breaching tools spinning up. They blew the first door with shaped charges and flooded the sim corridor with gas and strobe rounds. Jade dropped behind a dead projector bank as tungsten flechettes stitched the wall where his head had been. Soren moved through the chaos like violence given structure. Low, fast, economical, but the blood recall pulse hit again mid-lunge. She faltered for half a beat. A shock baton clipped her ribs and sent her skidding into a pod cradle. Left flank, Jade shouted, hurling an EMP puck across the floor. It detonated under 2 drones, killing their optics. Marrow came through the smoke in matte black armor, visor open, expression annoyed rather than angry. He carried no rifle, only a compact stunner and the confidence of a man holding every corridor on the map. Lieutenant, he called, stepping over one of his own unconscious operatives. This is beneath you. Soren rose, blood at one nostril, and spat pink on the deck. You shot civilians in a bar. I preserved order. Marrow's gaze flicked to Jade. And recovered a strategic asset, he signaled. 2 operatives peeled wide, driving Jade toward the tactical pit. Jade swung a metal baton, cracked one helmet, ducked a stun burst, and felt a second charge hit his side like a truck. He went to one knee, muscles locking. Hands hit his pack. He fought through static, too slow. A gloved arm yanked the false bottom panel free. Marrow caught the matte black key fragment as it slid out. For a second, everything narrowed to that rectangle in his palm. No, Jade rasped, trying to stand. Marrow gave him a courteous nod. Thank you for carrying this so far. Soren roared and launched herself at Marrow. 3 operatives converged. She dropped one with an elbow strike, disarmed another, took a baton strike across the shoulder, and still reached Marrow's chest plate before the recall pulse slammed her again. Her body seized mid-strike. Marrow stepped aside and drove the stunner into the side of her neck. She collapsed hard. Jade made a sound he didn't recognize as his own and threw himself toward her. A boot pinned his back. Zip cuffs bit his wrists. Marrow crouched beside him, voice almost sympathetic. You were never the objective, Instructor. You were provenance. A dead man with just enough history to make the story stick. He leaned closer. Ral appreciates coherent narratives. Then he stood and keyed a channel. Package secured. Segment beta inbound. Acquire surviving targets if feasible. If not, bleed them and track. One operative dragged Soren by her collar toward the corridor. Jade twisted, slammed his bound hands into the soldier's knee, and felt cartilage pop. The grip on Soren loosened. She rolled, half-conscious, and drove her heel into another operative's throat. Jade kicked the projector bank release with both feet. The dead unit tipped, crashed into the tactical pit, showering sparks. Emergency suppression foam erupted from ceiling nozzles, turning the floor into white, slick chaos. Visibility dropped to nothing. Soren's hand found Jade's cuffed wrists in the foam and yanked him toward a maintenance hatch he couldn't see. She cut the zip cuffs with shaking claws, shoved him through first, then dropped after him as rounds tore through the hatch frame. They fell 2 decks into a coolant crawl and lay in ankle-deep freezing runoff while alarms screamed above them. Jade rolled onto his back, chest heaving, side burning where the stunner hit. He took it. Soren, on hands and knees, pressed a fist to her sternum like she could physically hold herself together. I know. The fragment's gone. Upload compromised. We have nothing admissible. We have breath, she said, but the words were thin. Jade laughed once, ragged. That's not a plan. For a long moment, neither moved. Water dripped. Pumps thudded. Somewhere distant, a crowd was shouting, panic or anger impossible to tell. Jade put his head against cold metal and stared at the dark. He had spent years hunting one broker, one lead, one chance to make the dead mean something. Tonight, he had finally trusted someone, finally surfaced, finally moved, and lost the single piece that kept Ral from immediate fire control. He dug his fingers into his palms until it hurt. This is on me. Soren didn't answer. He turned. Her eyes were open, but unfocused. Pupils uneven. Breath shallow. The recall pulse had left tiny tremors running through every muscle in her arms. Soren? Give me a minute. We don't have... Give me a minute. He shut up. They found temporary shelter in an abandoned shrine niche built into the coolant sector wall. One of the old worker alcoves with a cracked fertility goddess and offerings of rusted bolts, dried algae flowers, and mechanics tags. Jade rigged a light blanket as signal dampening. Soren sat with her back to stone, knees drawn up, forearms on them, gaze fixed on nothing. When she finally spoke, her voice was stripped raw. I was 10 when they put the first discipline ring in my spine, she said. Jade looked over, startled by the flatness in her tone. Soren kept staring ahead. House training hall. My mother held my hands because I kept trying to claw the medtech. Ral stood at the glass and told me pain was instruction. A tiger who cannot be steered becomes a liability. Water ticked into a drain between them. They upgraded the ring at 14, then at commissioning. Legal language changed. Hardware didn't. We were told the channel existed for battlefield emergencies only. Her mouth twisted. I believed that. I wanted to believe it. Wanted to be good enough that no one ever touched the switch. She flexed her left hand. It shook anyway. Tonight she touched the switch. Jade said quietly, You're still fighting it. I am fighting through it. Her ears flattened. Different. A beat passed. In academy, she continued, I learned to never show pain in front of males, in front of rivals, in front of anyone who could convert weakness into leverage. Smile with teeth. Bleed where armor hides it. If I collapsed, another cadet took my slot. If I asked for help, they called it contamination. Her gaze finally shifted to him, bright and wet and furious about being either. When you taught us, she said, you corrected everyone the same way. No caste, no favorites. I hated you for that the first week. Thought you were mocking us. I wasn't. I know. Her laugh cracked. That was the problem. You treated us like people who could choose. Do you understand how offensive that is to a child raised as property? He swallowed. Yeah, I think I do. She looked down at her claws. Rael offered me a breeding contract last cycle. Political pairing. I said no. She smiled and called it youthful arrogance. 2 of my litter sisters signed theirs within the month. 1 died in gestation complications. The other does not leave her district without escorts now. Soren's voice thinned further. When I refused, Rael said, then you will serve as symbol instead. Ceremonial martyr, Jade thought. He didn't say it. Soren pressed her palms hard to her eyes, breath shuddering once. I'm afraid of becoming exactly what she made me for. A weapon that asks permission to exist. The words hung there, small and enormous. Jade shifted closer, slow enough for her to stop him. She didn't. He offered his hand, palm up, not touching. After a long moment, Soren set her clawed hand over it very carefully, as if testing whether contact could be trusted not to become control. I don't need you, Unbreakable, he said. Her throat worked. Good, because I am very close to broken. Then we do this with cracks. She huffed a breath that might have been a laugh, might have been grief. Terrible slogan. Workshopping it. They sat like that for 20 seconds, maybe 30, the station roaring around them. Then every speaker in the coolant sector came alive at once. Rahl's voice filled the alcove, no longer soothing. Attention, Capri. Bastion lock enters final phase. Orbital defense nexus now under direct strategic authority. Due to confirmed terrorist compromise, a demonstration strike will be executed in 16 minutes on an uninhabited industrial grid. Jade and Soren both snapped upright. A second line appeared on Jade's wrist display as he hacked the public feed. Target grid reclassified Ring 7 habitation blocks, pending. Uninhabited my ass, Jade said. Rahl continued. Lieutenant Soren Vale is ordered to present herself at Nexus Tribunal deck to answer blood treason under House Combat Law. Failure to appear will constitute confession and void all district shield priorities under her command history. Soren went white under her fur. Ring 7's shield allocations are still tagged to my old district authority. She can drop protection to your neighborhoods if you don't show. She can drop them if I do show and lose. Jade's display flashed again, an encrypted burst piggybacking on the announcement, keyed to his old black channel marker. He decrypted it with numb fingers. Video opened. Marrow in profile beside a command cradle. On the console in front of him sat Jade's stolen fragment locked beside a second one. A third slot glowed ready. Time code in corner. 0 hours, 15 minutes, 12 seconds to full key integration. At the bottom, a single text line from Morrow. Come teach your last lesson. Jade met Soren's gaze. There was fear there, yes. Also decision. No more running, she said. He stood, every bruise protesting. Nexus. Nexus. Outside the shrine niche, blast shutters were already cycling for full lockdown. They had minutes to reach a maintenance launch tube, or be sealed below while Rahl lit the sky. They ran. They ran. The maintenance launch tube was already cycling shut when Soren hit the override with her bleeding palm and Jade jammed a screwdriver into the actuator seam. The door screamed, paused, then grudgingly reopened to human width. "Go!" she barked. He slid through first, dropped into the narrow capsule cradle and hauled her in by both forearms as the blast shutter slammed behind them hard enough to wring teeth. Jade slapped the launch sequence for memory stolen in another life. Magnetic clamps released. The capsule shot up the spine toward the orbital defense nexus, acceleration crushing them shoulder to shoulder in the dark. Below them, Keepery Station became a spinning lattice of warning lights and sealed districts. Above them, the nexus hung like a spear point, armored pedals around a central fire control core, all white plating and weapon ports. Soren's wrist display ticked down in red. 0 hours, 10 minutes, 41 seconds. Tribunal deck is forward ring, she said through tight breath. Core access is aft. We split at the first gate. Jade looked at her. You sure you can stand in a circle fight right now? No, she said. I can still win one. The capsule latched to a maintenance collar with a bone-jarring clang. They forced the hatch and spilled into a service corridor humming with reactor current. Dominion guards in ceremonial harnesses already lined the main passage ahead, shields crossed. Not for defense, for audience control. Ral had turned a coup into theater. At the split gate, Soren caught Jade's jacket and pulled him close enough that he could feel her pulse hammering. If I drop, she said, voice low, you do not stop for me. You stop the grid. He shook his head, not agreeing to that. Her ears flattened. Jade. I lost one team to a script written by cowards. I'm not leaving you in one. Something in her face softened for half a heartbeat, then hardened back to command. Then don't make me die for nothing, she said, and shoved him toward aft access. She strode into the tribunal ring alone. The chamber was a vast circular deck open to the stars on one side, shielded by transparent armor that made the planet below look close enough to touch. House banners hung in suspended hollow panels. Strategists and adjudicators watched from stepped galleries. Security drones hovered like quiet insects. At the center stood High Strategist Ral Vale in white war robes edged with gold. Her fur was silver-striped, age and discipline worn like regalia. Beside her, a command lectern displayed 3 key slots. 2 were filled. Ral smiled as Soren entered. Niece. Soren did not bow. You invoked blood recall and house combat law. I answer. A murmur rippled through the galleries. Ral lifted one hand and silence snapped down. You answer late, Ral said. Civilian districts are minutes from catastrophic error because of your contamination. Say my name without the word contamination, Soren said. Or admit this hearing is a lie. Ral's smile thinned. Very well. Lieutenant Soren Vale, accused of treason, collusion, and theft of strategic material. You forgot attempted murder, Soren cut in. Mine, and 6 million civilians. Gasps. 2 adjudicators leaned forward. Ral's eyes flicked once to the galleries, calculating. Bold claims from a compromised officer. Under House combat law, truth may be tested by challenge. Do you challenge? Soren stepped into the circle and stripped her jacket, revealing bruised ribs and the jammer loop still at her neck. I challenge. The deck acknowledged with a low tone. Drones widened the perimeter. Weapons protocols flashed overhead. Non-projectile, close combat, blood adjudication. Ral removed her outer robe. Underneath, she wore fitted combat mesh and old campaign scars. She took up a paired ring blade, ceremonial, sharp enough to open arteries. Across the chamber, a side door irised. Marrow entered with an armored detail and the final key fragment locked in a transport case. He did not look at Soren. He moved directly toward the command lectern. Soren saw and lunged before the start tone. Ral met her with a slicing backhand that opened Soren's shoulder to the muscle. The crowd roared. Ral purred, impatient as ever. They collided again, claws and steel and disciplined brutality. Ral was older, not slower. She fought like doctrine. Punish, forward movement, control center line, break morale with pain. Soren fought like survival. Angles, feints, explosive close-in strikes that ignored elegance for effect. Above them, the countdown dropped under 8 minutes. Jade slipped through aft maintenance into the fire control core. The room was cathedral cold, stacked with hollow columns and targeting spheres tracking every district below. A transparent floor revealed the station's defensive satellites in synchronous orbit, each one capable of burning a city grid clean. He jacked his portable rig into an aux port and watched the system snarl at him. Unauthorized primary auth chain. Marrow/RAL/Stratcom. He started building an instructor override anyway, fingers shaking once before settling into old rhythm. Bootsteps sounded behind him. Marrow's voice arrived first. "I hoped you'd come here instead of dying in a tunnel." Jade didn't turn. "You sent me an invitation." "I sent bait." Marrow walked into view, armor scorched from the Simbay fight, pistol low but ready. Behind him, through a side airlock window, an extraction shuttle idled, with engines hot. "You're predictable when cornered by civilians at risk." "Funny," Jade said. "I was about to say the same." Marrow nodded toward the shuttle. "There's a seat for you. New identity, off-grid transfer, no tribunal testimony, no cell. Walk now and this station solves itself." Jade barked a humorless laugh. "By solving, you mean massacring a district and calling it policy." "I mean surviving history." Marrow's gaze was steady, almost weary. "You know how this works, Instructor. States eat inconvenient truths. Take the exit." Jade finally looked at him. 3 years ago, Orestes border, my unit got sold before extraction. Data broker tag called Calyx. Payment chain vanished. He tapped a key. Ral's authorization hashes bloomed on the hollow. Wasn't a vanished chain. It was yours and hers. For the first time, Marrow's expression shifted. Tiny, but real. Collateral in a border correction. They were 22. They were assets. Jade's jaw set. Not anymore. He slammed execute on his rig. A new window opened. Station-wide emergency broadcast channel, administrator lock requiring biometric truth key and command testimony. He could spoof half of it, not the biometric. Marrow raised his pistol. "Don't." Jade put his palm on the scanner. "My name is Captain Jade Minseok Park, Coalition Special Instruction Group. Service number K, 11744A. I am not deceased." The channel went live. His face exploded across every screen on Kipri. In the tribunal ring, Ral's blade scored Soren's thigh and drove her to one knee. Blood slicked the floor. The recall pulse hit again, brutal and precise. Soren's spine arched. Her left arm went numb. Ral circled. Voice pitched for the galleries. Observe contamination's end. She chose an off-world male over blood, over house, over order. Soren spat blood at her feet. "I chose people over your fear." Ral struck. Soren caught the wrist, twisted inside the blade arc, and took a second cut across her flank to land a headbutt that cracked Ral's brow ridge. Both staggered. Then Jade's voice thundered from every speaker in the chamber. Battle logs attached. Read timestamp cluster Orestes 19. Read the false flag brief signed by High Strategist Ral Vale and Security Chief Marrow. They planned a demonstration strike on civilian districts to trigger martial law. Ral's composure shattered for half a second. She snapped her eyes toward the nearest holofeed, where Marrow's face appeared behind Jade, gun raised. Soren used that half second. She drove forward, shoulder under Ral's center, and slammed her aunt into the adjudication rail hard enough to buckle metal. Ringblade spun away. Ral clawed for Soren's eyes. Soren trapped the hand, broke 2 fingers, and locked a choke from behind. Ral snarled, voice hoarse now, no longer stage perfect. You think this changes anything? Houses need control. Houses need truth, Soren growled back and tightened. Adjudicators shouted for separation. Ral stomped Soren's wounded thigh. Pain flared white. Soren almost lost the hold. Ral ripped free one arm, reached her wrist console, and thumbed a hidden command. Across the chamber, the 3rd key fragment auto-ejected from Marrow's transport case and shot into the lectern slot via magtrack. The defense grid chimed. Full key integration, complete auto-targeting protocol. Armed, Ral laughed, ragged and triumphant. Too late. Soren slammed her face into the deck and pinned her with a forearm across the throat. Then I'll hold you here while he saves us. Ral bucked, bit, clawed. Soren held. In fire control, Marrow fired. The round burned past Jade's ear and blew out a console bank. Jade dove, rolled behind the central cradle, and came up with a maintenance coupler as an improvised baton. Marrow advanced, disciplined, forcing angles away from the manual relay ladder. Jade swung. Marrow blocked with forearm plating and countered with an elbow that rattled Jade's teeth. They crashed into a hollow column, target spheres bursting into static around them. Marrow fought like a man who trained with professionals and then ordered them to die. Efficient, unsentimental, no wasted motion. You could have walked away, Marrow hissed, driving the pistol into Jade's ribs. Jade trapped the weapon arm, slammed it into the console edge, and heard bone crack. The pistol skittered across the floor. Marrow headbutted him, grabbed his throat, and shoved him toward the shuttle lock. Last offer, Marrow said, breathing hard. Get on the shuttle. Jade looked past him through the transparent floor at the satellites pivoting, reticles blooming red over Ring 7. Then he kneed Marrow's damaged arm, tore free, and launched himself at the manual relay ladder. Marrow caught his ankle. Jade kicked backward, heel smashing Marrow's nose. Blood sprayed. Jade climbed. Above the core hung the manual relay platform, old-school mechanical failsafe no strategist liked, because it required physical presence and bloodline co-authorization to reset live targeting. Jade reached the top and froze. The relay required 2 inputs, Instructor override sequence and a Dominion blood seal from registered command lineage. He had the first, not the second. Below, Marrow staggered to his feet and reached for a dropped shock rifle. Jade keyed the broadcast again, voice raw. All channels, this is Park. Auto-target is live. I need Lieutenant Soren Vale at manual relay now or Ring 7 burns. In the tribunal chamber, Soren heard him through pounding blood. She released Ral just long enough to drive an adjudicator's stun baton into her aunt's sternum and drop her twitching. 2 drones moved to restrain. Ral still fought, screaming orders, invoking emergency supremacy. Soren ignored all of it and ran. She made it halfway to the core corridor before her leg gave out. She hit the deck, dragged herself up by a handrail, and kept moving, leaving a red smear behind her. Marrow raised the shock rifle at Jade on the platform. Heroics end here, he said. Soren hit him from the blind side like a missile. The rifle discharged into the ceiling. Electricity spidered across supports. Marrow spun, punched her wound, and drove her back into the relay pillar. She went down hard. Vision graying. Marrow turned the rifle toward her head. Jade dropped from the platform onto Marrow's back, both hands on Marrow's throat. They went down together, rolling through sparks and shattered glass. Marrow elbowed Jade's ribs, threw him off, and lunged for the shuttle lock controls. Jade saw the escape route open on Marrow's wrist pad. A clean getaway. No witness if he left now. He could still run. Instead, he slammed his palm on the broadcast stud one last time and shouted to the entire station, "Marrow is fleeing fire control during active civilian targeting. Record this." He hurled his rig at the shuttle controls. The casing shattered, but the impact triggered emergency clamp lockdown. The shuttle bay doors sealed with Marrow half a step from escape. Marrow wheeled, trapped, and Soren was there, bleeding, shaking, furious beyond words. She drove him into the deck and pinned him with both forearms. "Look at me," she said. Marrow spit blood and smiled. "You're already dead in committee." "Maybe," she said, and slammed his face into the floor until he stopped moving. Then she collapsed sideways. Jade crawled to her, hands slick with both their blood. On the targeting holo, red reticles blinked toward firing status. 00:00:39. "Soren, hey, stay with me." Her eyes fluttered open, unfocused. "Manual. Relay. I need your seal." He got her under the shoulders and half-carried, half-dragged her up the ladder to the platform. Every rung left red handprints. At the relay pedestal, he keyed the instructor sequence, from memory he had sworn never to use again. 3 counter rotations, 2 deadman toggles, vocal code in old coalition dialect. Instructor override accepted awaiting bloodline auth. Soren's head lolled. Jade took her hand, pressed her claws to the seal plate. No read. "Come on," he whispered. "Soren, I need you here." Her lips moved without sound. He pressed his forehead to hers. "Lieutenant Soren Vale. Authorize grid reset." Something in her focused. She bared her teeth, dug one claw into her own palm, and smeared blood across the plate. "Bye. Vale, blood, and guard oath," she rasped. "I revoke strategist fire." The pedestal flashed gold. Below them, the satellites halted mid-pivot. Red reticles vanished from Ring 7 and dissolved into neutral blue. 00:00:03 reset complete. Soren sagged bonelessly into Jade's arms. He held her while sirens changed from attack tone to medical priority, and boots thundered up the corridor. This time, not to kill, but to arrest. The first faces he recognized were not friendly. 2 rival house adjudicators, armored tribunal marshals, and a medic team that shoved him aside to reach Soren. "No." He caught the rail. "I'm not leaving." A medic snapped. "Then hold this pressure pack and stop arguing." He did, palms firm over Soren's flank, while foam sealant hissed into the wound. Soren drifted in and out, ears twitching at voices overhead. "Pulse thready. Neural mesh backlash get dampers. Where's Marrow?" "Secured. Ral restrained in tribunal custody." Ral's voice carried from the corridor, hoarse and incandescent with rage. "You cannot chain me. I am strategic authority." An adjudicator cut her off. "Authority suspended pending cross-house inquiry." Marrow said nothing as they dragged him past, wrists magnet-locked, nose broken, eyes full of cold hate fixed on Jade. Jade met the stare and didn't look away. By the time they moved Soren to critical care, the station feeds had already forked into 1,000 arguments. Raw clips of Jade's confession and logs. Slowed footage of Ral's challenge circle. Marrow attempting flight. Civilian channels from Ring 7 showing families in shelters watching red reticles vanish with seconds left. Truth was messy, but it was public, and public could not be quietly erased. A tribunal marshal approached Jade as he scrubbed blood from his hands in a sink that kept turning pink. "Captain Jade Park," she said formally, using the name from his broadcast. "Lethal warrant voided. You are remanded as protected witness under emergency statute." "Protected," he echoed, exhausted. "Conditional." She handed him a data slate. "You will testify. In return, provisional amnesty is recommended by 3 houses and 2 labor unions you accidentally saved." He almost laughed. "That's a coalition I didn't plan." "History rarely is." She paused, softer. "The cadet exchange kill order markers were real. We found 9 additional pings archived under strategic black files. You weren't the only ghost." The words hit hard. Not relief. Not yet. But something adjacent. He looked through the ICU glass at Soren, unconscious under med lights, bandaged from shoulder to hip, jammer loop finally removed from her neck. "When can I see her?" "Now," the marshal said, "if you promise not to start another coup in the hallway." "No promises," he muttered and went in. Soren woke 12 hours later to the smell of antiseptic and burned circuitry, and Jade asleep in a chair with his head against her mattress, one hand still wrapped around the bed rail like he expected someone to steal it. She watched him for a long moment before speaking. "Your posture is terrible, Instructor." He jolted awake so fast he nearly fell. "Soren, hey. "Still here," she said, voice rough. Relief crossed his face nakedly, unarmored. He sat, then stopped himself from touching her until she lifted her hand. He took it carefully. Outside the room, the station was still on emergency footing. Inside, time narrowed. "They suspended Ral and Marrow," he said. "Cross-house tribunal at shift change. Evidence held. Your challenge was recognized as lawful." "Recognized," she repeated, eyes closing briefly. "And punished?" He exhaled. "They stripped ceremonial rank for disobedience. Then, after 3 houses almost punched each other on live feed, they reinstated you under emergency reform charter." A faint smile. "Commander. Mixed species guard unit, Kepri Station. New patch, ugly colors." Her eyes opened again, startled. "They gave me a unit?" "They gave you the job nobody else can do without starting another war." She stared at the ceiling, absorbing the weight. "What about you?" "I testified under my real name." He swallowed. "No more mechanic mask, no more dead marker. Dominion offered conditional amnesty in exchange for full deposition and strategic reform work. Do you accept?" He looked at her, thumb brushing her knuckles once. "I already did." A quiet stretched, thick with everything neither had said while running for their lives. Soren turned her head toward him. "In the shrine, I told you I was afraid of being a weapon." "You did." "I am still afraid." Her ears lowered. "But when you called for me at relay, you didn't order. You asked." He leaned closer, voice low. "Because you're not mine to command." Her eyes shone. "Good answer." He laughed softly, then sobered. "My turn, then. I'm afraid, too." "Of what?" "Of staying." The word came out before he could edit it. "I know how to disappear. I'm good at it. Names, cities, jobs, all disposable. Staying means people can be used against you." His jaw tightened. "When Marrow opened that shuttle, every training instinct I have said run. You didn't." "I looked at it and thought about waking up somewhere with no past, and it felt like dying slower." He held her gaze. "I stayed because of civilians. I stayed because I was tired of being a ghost. And I stayed because you were on that floor bleeding and I wouldn't leave you." Soren's breath caught. Jade continued, voice steadier now that it was out. "I love you. Not as a battlefield habit. Not because we survived something. I love the way you choose when it costs you, the way you scare cowards, the way you ask for 10 seconds and then stand up anyway. He gave a helpless half-smile. I love you angry. I love you stubborn. I love you alive. She stared at him as if struck, then bared her teeth in a trembling smile that looked nothing like threat. In my language, she said softly, there is a word for choosing someone in full witness. Not mating contract, not house assignment. Choice. She squeezed his hand with surprising strength. I choose you, Jade Park. He bowed his head until their foreheads touched, careful of her bandages. They stayed there, breathing together. After a minute, she whispered, when they release me, I don't go back to House Vale District. Good. I want a home where no one owns the door code but us. His laugh broke on relief. That sounds dangerously like moving in. It is a tactical cohabitation arrangement, she said with perfect seriousness. Ah, very official. Includes touch permissions. Critical clause. She tugged his hand and, when he leaned in, kissed him. Slow, despite the monitors, despite the bruises, despite everything still unresolved outside the glass. It was not desperate. It was deliberate. A promise made by two people who had spent too long being used by other agendas. When they broke, Soren rested back, eyes half-lidded. Stay, she said. He brushed her hairline, careful around healing skin. I just told you I'm done running. Good, she murmured, drifting. Your posture is still terrible. He smiled and settled deeper into the chair without letting go of her hand. 3 weeks later, the old Dockside Club reopened under new ownership and stricter weapon scans. Jade stood on the same sticky alloy floor where his cheek had once hit hard enough to spark pain, and watched recruits from 6 species try not to stare at the Tiger Commander stalking between them. Again, Soren said. A lizard caste cadet rushed her with a training baton. She disarmed him in one smooth spiral and pinned him face down, forearm across shoulders, knee at spine. Controlled, precise, no cruelty in it. She released instantly when he tapped out and offered him a hand up. Centerline, she told him. You telegraphed from the hips. Across the room, mixed species guard patches flashed under bar lights. The new unit, ugly colors and all. Humans trained beside Tiger Caste, beside avians, beside mechanics who had never touched formal combat before yesterday. No one called it contamination. Nemi leaned at the bar, clicking her beak around a glass of algae gin. Your commander smiles now, she observed as Jade joined her. Rare event, Jade said. Record it for science. On a wall screen, tribunal sentencing streamed live. Rel stood in restraint bands, spine straight, defiant to the end as the crosshouse panel read, conviction on conspiracy, unlawful command coercion, and mass casualty intent. Marrow received life confinement in strategic black detention. His request for sealed transport was denied on public interest grounds. The Calyx broker chain surfaced with them. Names, payments, the old border betrayal finally tied to signatures that could no longer hide. Nemi tipped her glass toward the screen. You got your ghost named. Jade watched the feed, jaw quiet. Names aren't justice, but it's a start. After training, Soren crossed the room, toweling sweat from her neck. The old jammer scar was still visible, but the implant itself was gone, surgically stripped under tribunal oversight. In its place, she wore a thin braided cord with one ring on it, house sigil filed smooth. Commander, Jade said, mock formal. Instructor, she returned. Outside, rain from the hydroponic condensers streaked the station windows. Their district shuttle left in 10 minutes. Their district, singular. He picked up her bag before she could protest. She let him, then bumped her shoulder against his as they walked out past recruits, arguing over footwork and a bartender pretending not to eavesdrop. At the transit platform, a young human cadet from Freight Ring 9 jogged up, breathless. "Commander Vale, Instructor Park, is it true you two fought strategic insecurity in the same night?" Soren considered. "We had a disagreement." The cadet grinned. "Will we learn that takedown?" Jade glanced at Soren. She raised an eyebrow. "Maybe in advanced class," he said. The cadet dashed off, thrilled. Their shuttle arrived. Inside, it was quiet, seats worn, lights warm. Not military, not temporary. Homebound. Soren sat, stretched her injured leg and looked at him. "When we get back, kitchen shelf still needs mounting." "Commander, that shelf is a structural nightmare." "It is a shelf. It is a trap designed by sadists." She leaned over and kissed his cheek. "You survived orbital coup night. You can survive domestic engineering." He huffed a laugh and took her hand as the shuttle pulled away from the dockside ring. Below them, Capri turned. Still loud, still dangerous, still full of politics and old wounds. But in one district apartment with an unmounted shelf and 2 sets of boots by the door, a dead instructor had a name again, and a tiger once trained never to ask for help had chosen an equal. When the shuttle lights dimmed for transit, Soren tugged him closer until his shoulder met hers, solid and real. This time, when she pinned him, it was only his hand in hers, and neither of them wanted to escape.